Getting things started, right? Do you mind just kind of giving a brief introduction to yourself, the school that you attend, the sport that you play, and where you're currently at from a position standpoint?
Absolutely, Josh. Thank you again for having me on the podcast. Hello, everyone. My name is Andrew Heidemann. I go by the alias of Heidi Throws on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, but I make a lot of baseball content. I go to Franciscan University of Steubenville. I'm a senior. I'm a right-handed pitcher, and I play college baseball.
Awesome. And about your journey, I know what seems like 5 minutes ago, you just kind of gave me the super, super brief rundown. But for everybody tuning in too, right? Can you kind of just give a quick overview of what that journey has looked like leading up to today and, what the culmination of your position, kind of the mental side, and how you've really changed from an athletic and academic experience as well?
Absolutely, Josh. So, as soon as I graduated high school, I kind of realized that I really wanted to play college baseball. This is right around during the time of COVID, the COVID-19 pandemic. So, as soon as I was in my senior year of high school, I kind of realized that I really needed to take my game to the next level to play college baseball because I was so far behind and so underdeveloped at the time. So I was a catcher at the time and I was really just focusing on my personal development. I wasn't really thinking about just the mental side of baseball just yet. I was more focused on the physical side. So coming out of high school, I was just so focused on just catching up to the guys around me. I was very underdeveloped, like I said, 150 pounds, I think. I was 6 foot, just, small guy, especially for a catcher. So coming out of high school, I really didn't know a whole lot about Division 3 baseball. I kind of thought that it was, the lowest level of college baseball. Not a lot of guys competed. It was just, kind of like not like baseball for fun, but it was just very low level talent. And as soon as I got to college, that was where I really was like, wow. I was like, I was completely wrong. But I got to college. I was one of 8 catchers, I think, recruited that year. There were a lot of guys at my position, and there were a lot of other older guys at my position just because of the COVID-19 pandemic and how everything played out with that. So, my freshman fall, I was probably somewhere near the bottom on the depth chart. I think a lot of guys probably thought I was not going to make it through the fall. But after I got through the fall, I was the bullpen catcher for the 2021-22 season. And I just spent a lot of the year just kind of sitting on the bench, really just looking at the other guys around me, trying to pick up on the little things of college baseball. A lot of these different nuances, how to respect other individuals, just kind of how to just be a teammate, how to do your job. And that was a very humbling experience for me. But at the same time, too, I really wanted to get the respect of the guys around me. I really wanted to show that I had the hard work, I had the work ethic. And so, no matter what my job was, whether that was writing down the book, doing a scouting chart, or, catching bullpens, I just wanted to show my teammates that I'm committed to you guys and I'm committed to being the best version of myself. And so, that's what I really focused on my freshman year. But towards the end of the year, I really started to kind of ask myself, I was like, do I really like love baseball? Like, do I really love the game enough to where I want to just continue being a catcher, continue hitting, continuing the grind? And that was a lot for me at the time. And so one of my teammates approached me and said, "Hey, like, have you ever thought of being a pitcher?" And to my response was no, but you know what? I'll give it a try. I mean, I wasn't playing at the time, like I said, so I really had nothing to lose. So I went home for the summer. My freshman summer, I got like a part-time job and played in a summer league. And when I got to this summer league, I told the coach, I was like, yeah, I play a little bit of outfield. I pitch a little bit. I'm a catcher. Mind you, I have never played outfield or pitching at this time. I just wanted to be on the team and just try and get like some time to develop. So, so very first game, he puts me in the outfield. This guy hits a ball over my head. I probably should have. It was probably a routine play, but I didn't make it. Then in the second game, we had a double header. He comes up to me and he gives me the ball and he's like, "You're starting the second game." And I kind of looked at him and I was like, I don't know if I can do this. Like, I just kind of like, are you sure you want me out there? It was very, very interesting. But he gave me the ball, and so I went up to the catcher and I was like, hey, look, I have never pitched actually before. I really don't have, I just have a fastball, really. And he's like, all right, well, let's see your curveball. And I throw it like 30 feet over his head. It's ridiculous. But, I go out that game and I think I threw like 5 innings and I think I had like 3 or 4 strikeouts and I only let up a run. So, I got outs. Were they long outs? Yeah. There were a lot of hard hit balls, but you know what? Only one run. That's not too bad. And that was a home run. That's probably still flying. So, you know, things happen. So I took a lot of confidence from that summer, just trying to pitch and just kind of improve upon the last outing. Then I showed up for my sophomore year in college. I told my coach I wanted to pitch. This is what I wanted to do. And so my sophomore year, I was kind of treated as like a pseudo catcher and pitcher. And that's really where I kind of started doing content on YouTube. I originally made a video about kind of my whole experience with catching and pitching and how that all kind of started. And I wanted to showcase that to just someone on YouTube. I just kind of figured that someone would like to see this journey and just know that like it is possible. So I showed them that, or I edited a lot of these different clips together and of me pitching and catching. And I put those on YouTube. And I kind of liked the creative process and I wanted to keep going with it. And then one of my teammates approached me and said, hey, do you want to start a YouTube channel with me? And I said, I don't know. So, we were kind of going back and forth on some stuff. He started to do a little bit of content and then I think he kind of shied away from that, but I continued to do stuff. But I made a couple vlogs that year and then I started doing some like pitching outing breakdowns with some footage that we had. And I thought it was kind of cool. But then during the summer of I think this is 22, 23, I started this thing called the Road to 90. And that was really where I started to kind of gain traction on YouTube and trying to showcase people what my lifestyle was and everything. And it was just purely just a vlog series about me trying to go from, you know, like probably like low 70s to get into the 80 mile per hour range. And so that summer I made a bunch of different episodes and I really just started to kind of dial into the video creating, the storytelling, the editing, the graphic design, everything that had to go with trying to get stuff together on YouTube. And so I did that summer. And then showing up for my junior year, that's when I really wanted to take hold of what I was doing on YouTube, really try and pump that out a little more. But also, too, I wanted to prove to my teammates that, yeah, I'm a pitcher now, and this is what I do. So in that fall, I had a decent fall ball. I got, a lot of outs. I was really starting to take more form into who I was and what I was doing. That winter, I topped 86 and I was sitting somewhere in like the low to mid 80s. And that's really where my mindset kind of started to change. I started to prove more to myself that, I could pitch and I could play with these guys. And I wanted to prove that. My junior year was a really, like, kind of more of a developmental year for me, per se. But, I was really just trying to figure out, like, the different types of mentalities you need to have, how to deal with adversity. That was a really big thing for me that I had to kind of overcome. There were a lot of hard moments, but I tried to really take away the good things and the things I learned from those moments to continue to do them and build upon them for future outings. So I felt like throughout the year, it was just like it was up, down, up, down. It was really just, there was really no consistency. And that was really the biggest thing that I took into the off season that I really wanted to build. So then going into my senior year, which is the year I'm in right now, I dealt with, a couple injuries. There were a couple other things that just mentally I was really trying to jump over the hurdle. And, you're trying to graduate college and transition into life and what you're doing after college. So there were just so many things mentally for me that I've had to just kind of pivot, look at, deal with, and really try and overcome, just like in baseball too. And that's been a little rough, but we're still here and we're still going and I'm still trying to get better every single day.
And I think that's important too, right? Because sometimes we lose focus as far as trying to get better every single day. And sometimes too, right? Speaking of myself, where I'm a handful of years now removed from being part of a team, being in that college setting, it's like you don't have that teammate or that coach kind of pushing you day in and day out saying, hey, right, there's expectations on you, all that stuff. But I know at the very tail end, you're starting to mention about the mental side, right? The mentality, and especially too going into senior year. Hey, there's a lot going on, right? There's graduation, there's still a full season to get through. There's stuff right on the content side, but there's also things too where you have to kind of focus on to try to set yourself up for success kind of post college as well. And obviously, that can be a lot to juggle for not only just a regular college student, let alone a student athlete. And for you, Andrew, I mean, have there been any kind of tools, resources, individuals who you really reached out to from the mental side of the game in order to kind of work on some stuff? Or has it just been kind of, yourself kind of working on some stuff from an individual basis?
So for me, the biggest thing that's really been something that I've used to train my mind is really my college coach. My college head coach, he's really big on the mental side of baseball, more so I feel like than any other aspect. And being a freshman in college, that was a really big wake up call for me. I really had to learn that, really had to like kind of get my head around that because it was such a big transition. But he has been just the biggest person where I've really learned a lot of just, how to be mentally tough, how to be a man, how to be just a man of faith. And that's really been my biggest teacher. He's been my biggest teacher when it comes to the mental side of baseball and really trying to understand like how to just be mentally tough. But outside of him, there hasn't been a whole lot of other resources that have really, kind of taught me. I'm really big on, my own personal Christian faith. So that's been just a lot to lean upon and really just read scripture, go to church, different things like that to really just ground myself in what I'm trying to do mentally and perform on and off the field. Sometimes baseball can be a lot and it's hard not to take that into the other areas of your life. And so that's been kind of something I've been trying to learn is okay, we had a bad day on the baseball field. Let's try not to bring this, into time I spend with family, friends, or, other people. It's hard to kind of compartmentalize those two things, but mentally just really focusing on my faith, the people I have around me, what is in my control, what's not in my control.
So it's super awesome to see, that you were surrounded by a coach in kind of that support system like you are currently to really kind of help you build up that system, especially, mental toughness, right? Baseball is a game of failure, and it can definitely take a toll on everybody from a mental standpoint, regardless of the position you play. So super, super cool stuff there. And I know that will transition into academics and athletics and really trying to balance that because I know for myself, it was all about routine and baseball seemed like a game, especially in season where once you start traveling, once you start kind of having games that go into extra innings and now your routine's completely thrown off, it's something where you really have to maximize every single minute of your day, it seems like. And so for you, Andrew, I mean, especially adding in the content piece of it where you're trying to manage that, be able to, post whether it's videos, other pieces of content as well. I mean, how are you balancing athletics, academics, and content on a year in, year out basis?
Well, for the last couple years, I mean, as far as I've been doing YouTube and just doing YouTube and baseball together and school, because school is important too. But yeah, it's definitely hard. I created like a Google sheet or like an Excel sheet and with my baseball schedule and with content and everything, so I kind of know when things conflict. And obviously the days that I have baseball games, it's kind of like, well, that's the priority that day. So, everything else, it's kind of we have to fit around that. It's definitely hard. Mentally, I try to focus on baseball, my family, you know, going to church. Like the biggest things in my life, my faith, just I try and prioritize those more so, not over the YouTube stuff, because content and everything is important, but at the same time too, there are things that are a little more important than content and than YouTube. And some days, you're able to prioritize, getting content out and stuff, and other days you're not. But it's really just like you said, like the time management. Time management's huge. I mean, whether that's making sure you're in bed at, a certain time, you're waking up at a certain time, and just making sure that you're not just sitting around and scrolling on social media all day. I mean, that's pretty hard to do. But yeah, just having a good schedule and just trying to stay level-headed and not work things too much up in your mind, and just know that, if you don't get your content out that day, it's not the end of the world. But at the same time too, just try and stay consistent with whatever you do, whether that's releasing videos on Monday and Friday, or releasing every Monday, or if you're releasing every Wednesday or whatever, just being consistent with whatever you do and stick to that, to yourself. And I think that that alone people will see, and you yourself can rest your head on knowing, you know what, I've been consistent with what I've been doing, and that's the best that I can do.
Definitely. And talking about content creation too, right? I know probably 10, 15, 20 years ago, right? A lot of athletes, let alone collegiate students, probably weren't putting out YouTube videos, having YouTube channels, doing stuff like that. I wish they were, right? It'd been awesome to see, especially kind of growing up in sports. But, a lot of times now, I feel like athletes, students, individuals who are in college are a lot more intrigued, right, by, hey, right, this is a passion of mine. I grew up kind of watching these videos. It's something that, inspired me. And ultimately I want to get to that point of making videos, making content. But to that point, though, I know some people in this day and age, hey, right, it's kind of to try and help out, build a almost a profile for them from an NIL standpoint, right? How they can try to maximize that. Others are like, hey, right, I love this. I love kind of the sense of community that I'm building, and hopefully helping out other athletes who are, subscribing and watching the videos. But one of the key areas I think is just how to start, right? If you're a student athlete and maybe you're in high school, maybe you're in college and you're like, this is something I'm kind of interested in, but I don't know how to take that first step, kind of that first leap. What would be some advice to those student athletes?
Just try and try and do something, whether that's writing, whether that's video editing, graphic design. When I came into college, I had no plans of starting a YouTube channel whatsoever. And I was a rigid, I mean, I will be graduating with a communication arts degree. My focus and my concentration is in journalism. So I swore up and down actually that I would never touch video editing and graphic design. I just wanted to stick to journalism and writing, and to my surprise, that didn't end up happening. I actually do the opposite now. I do more video editing and graphic design than writing. So it's funny how, you say things that you want to do and they don't work out. But my best advice, though, would just really just try something. I mean, whether that's journalism, whether that's graphic design or video editing, just try and do whatever you can with what you have. I mean, there's a lot of free editing softwares, there's a lot of free graphic design softwares. I mean, you don't have to start with the Adobe Premiere suite of things. Just start with what you have. Try and put that out on some type of platform like Instagram or TikTok or even YouTube, and just try and show people with what you can do. And I'm sure that eventually, as long as you're consistent, the longer you stick with it, like, I know it sounds cliche, but I mean, it really does work wonders. The longer you stick with it, and as much as you can show people that you are trying and you're trying to get better, and whether that's the smaller things or the bigger things, improve your craft, things that you can control, that would really be my best piece of advice for others.
I think that's great advice. And I think that too just helps kind of outline a little bit more of the journey, because sometimes we can get so stuck as far as being like, well, what do I do over the weekend in order to get 1 million subscribers on YouTube, right? Like, it's more of that process as far as, hey, how do I start with what I currently have and kind of build upon that too? So I love how you just really outlined that. And especially where you're at right now, right? Senior year, I know you mentioned, hey, it seems like we got a couple more weeks of games that we got going on, even though it's jam packed into those handful of weeks. But For myself, one of the things that really changed for me over time was the definition of success, right? When I was in high school, it was how can I play at, a top tier college and get recruited by, the best team, blah, 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 blah. And then over time, right, once I got into college and especially as I started going into the junior, senior year, my definition of success really changed. And it was like, well, man, like how can I be the best teammate possible? How can I support my team in ways that when I'm gone, that it's still going to impact them in a positive, positive way where, those habits, those routines that we're setting up as, upperclassmen that those freshmen and sophomores are going to take with them as well. So for you, Andrew, whether it's, athletically, academically, or from a content perspective, how has that definition of success kind of changed and evolved for you over the years?
Well, for me, I was like many other people where I was looking for success overnight. And that really was one of the biggest things that I had to kind of sit and look at and be like, well, I need to be patient, number one. And number two, I need to really work hard and grind. I really need to get on the grind of doing that. And I need to be patient and just kind of seeing what happens. And also too, I think a lot of people can get caught up in how good that they are instead of taking a step back and being critical and critique themselves on, you know what, I don't do this right and I need to get better at it. But for me, the biggest thing was is that I wanted to just be the best version of myself and really learning how to be the best version of myself and just proving to myself that I can do this. Kind of going back on to the mental side of things, having confidence in what I do has been really, really challenging because the way that I want to see myself is better than who I am right now. And trying to be the best version of myself, that's really what I try and take pride in and take, my success in. Was I the best version of myself today on the mound, and if I can say that I was, then to me, that was a decent outing. You're not always going to get the best results. On YouTube, you could put in the best YouTube thumbnail, the best edited video, and you know what? Maybe the video only gets 3 views. Sometimes it really sucks. But at the same time, too, if you can say that you put out the best stuff possible, and you know what? Sometimes the result's not going to be there. And that's really hard. But for me, I just want to be the best version of myself for others and for my teammates and for those who watch my videos.
Definitely. Yeah, no, I think that that's just a great way to look at it from a success standpoint, especially with our day and age, as far as trying to get success overnight, with kind of the impact that social media has had over the past couple of years. But I know too, your situation has obviously been different, with that transition in college between, coming in as a catcher and then transitioning to a pitcher. But ultimately, say I'm a high school athlete, right? I'm kind of starting that process as far as starting to think about getting recruited and, maybe what I need to focus on or some next steps as far as, hey, what should I look at for schools or programs or places, all of that. What would be some advice that you would go back and tell your younger self to maybe be a little bit more prepared, a little bit more ready, kind of put yourself in a better spot, kind of going into that freshman year of college?
The best advice I would give to someone would probably be as a sophomore or even a junior in high school, figure out and put down what your goals are for college or your long term goals. Write them down, put them somewhere, and look at them and really think about to yourself like what you want to do. Because if you want to go to a Division 1 college, or if you want to go to the best JUCO or the best Division 3, whatever, whatever you want to do, write down that and figure and think backwards. Think about how you're going to get there and then talk to someone about it so that you can get another perspective. And make sure that you surround yourself with the right people as well. I think that's really, really important. But if it is an athletic accomplishment or an athletic goal that you want to do, your physical development, I think, above all things, needs to be your number one priority. Because if you're an underdeveloped person going into college, excuse me, I think that you're going to have to play the game of catch up. You're going to have to grind harder. And those aren't necessarily bad things, but you could set yourself up earlier, which I think if you spend your time, your resources, your money it's going to be better in the long run for you. There's a lot of people, there's all these perfect game showcases you can go to, and that's great. But if you don't have the tools to show college coaches that you are physically ready for the next level, then why are you paying all this money to go to these showcases? Spend that money on a good strength and conditioning coach. Spend that money on good coaches, good coaches, because trust me, in the long run, that is going to pay. You're going to get your return on investment a lot more if you do that. So, honestly, I would just kind of say, like, define your goals and figure out a roadmap for how you're going to get there. A legitimate roadmap, and be open to critique and just be open to growing.
Definitely. Yeah, I think that's a big thing too, right? Sometimes we've been told, especially as high school athletes, a lot of times, especially being recruited to college, hey, right, you're one of the top guys in the on the team, and there's nothing that needs to be changed with either the way you throw, the way you hit, the way you field. But there's always someone out there, whether it's a different coach, a different player that says something where you're like, nah, I'm good. But 9 times out of 10, it's one little tweak, one little improvement that you can get just maybe 1% better. And that can even potentially, be the difference between, one school and a different school that's, maybe a little bit better, maybe a different division too. So, no, I love that. I think that's perfect. And in closing, I know that we talked about, right, a lot of different heavy stuff on the mental side of the game, on different aspects of the journey. But I always love wrapping up with this question. And it's really all about just what's a favorite kind of core memory that you've had from your athletic career. Doesn't necessarily have to be, hey, right, senior year. I know, still in the thick of it, but could literally be anywhere through that athletic career that still puts a smile on your face, and you're like, this is something that when I'm 80 years old, I'm still going to be telling probably to my grandkids at that point.
Well, I actually have two memories, if you don't mind me sharing both. My first memory, I'd say, would have to be the summer of 2023. This was the summer right after my sophomore year. So I actually decided to I actually decided to take an internship with a professional baseball team, an indie ball team in the area of where my college is. And I worked another job, and I decided to train for my college season. But this is the first time I'm really living on my own with, someone else. And it was just me and my roommate, and we just decided, we were like, you know what, we're going to grind and we're going to get better at baseball. We're going to eat well. We are going to figure out what we need to do to really get better. And that entire summer, it was really just working, training for baseball. I mean, everything, and just trying to figure out how to live, on my own. And I just always kind of look back on that summer, and I'm just kind of like, I grew. I didn't grow as much as I wanted to that summer from an athletic standpoint, but from, just having like a good memory of like growing as much as I did. Cause I mean, I did grow a lot, but as far as everything went, I have some really good memories with my roommate and everything from that year. So that was really, really good. But the second memory I do have was I threw a complete game shutout last year. I mean, this is obviously, my first year really pitching, but how that entire story just kind of unfolded. I got to the field that day and I pitched like 2 or 3 days prior. So I wasn't really expecting to pitch that day at all. Like I had no clue I was even going to step on the mound. But my coach comes up to me and he's like, "How does your arm feel?" I'm like, "No, I feel all right. I feel good. Good enough. You need like an inning or two." And the guy who was supposed to start that day I think he had like an exam or something, and he missed the bus. So I was like, well, I guess I'm starting that day. But I wasn't prepared. I mean, I didn't even bring my headphones for the bus. I was just kind of sitting there, just looking out the window, and I'm like, all right, well. So we get to the field. And so before the game, I'm stretching, and, all my teammates are like jeering, whatever. They're like, oh, this guy's doing all these weird stretches, whatever, the normal starting pitcher type stuff. And I'm kind of like sitting there, and I'm trying not to take it personally, whatever. So, but I get dialed into this game, and I'm like, all right, well, we'll just see how this goes. And that entire game felt kind of like a dream because it didn't really feel like it was happening. But yeah, I mean, and I'd never really, up until that point, I'd never really finished a game. I'd never really gone deep into games. So that was a really big learning moment for me. But I just remember like the closer coming up to talk to me in the seventh inning, and he's like, I don't want to have to go and close this game, and he's like, I want you to finish the game. And I'm like, all right, cool. I didn't really care. So, I go back out on the mound, and I just remember I think I had one strikeout all the entire game, and it was the last batter. And I just remember striking him out, and my catcher coming up to, dap me up. It was awesome. That entire game was phenomenal. But though, I mean, those really two are the biggest learning moments, I think, and biggest, moments, memorable moments from my college career and everything. And, I just always look back on those two moments, and I'm really thankful for them.
Awesome. I love to hear that, and I always love closing with it because it always puts a smile on whoever I'm talking to, their face. And it's just great to see, their eyes really light up as they're, walking through every single thing that happened. So appreciate you sharing that as well as the rest of your journey and everything that really encompassed. And for everybody tuning in, listening down below, we're going to include all of Andrew's social medias where his content is super relevant on there. So go check it out. Trust me, I came across it, and it's something that I wish I came across a lot sooner. But I honestly feel like I'm part of the team as I watch it. I feel like it's a very community type of sense. So, with that being said, definitely go check it out, give him a follow, subscribe, all that good stuff. And I'm really hoping too that coming months, things like that we can get Andrew back on to talk about maybe some more specifics on, the pitching side, the baseball side, things like that. Just because he's got an awesome mentality just when it comes to sports, when it comes to life itself and his journey. And I think he's a real wealth of knowledge. So looking forward and really hoping that, we can get some future conversations with Andrew going. But other than that, it's been a pleasure talking with you today, Andrew.